To understand the importance of a will, I have to explain first what happens if you do not have a will. When you pass away without a will, your estate gets distributed in terms of the Interstate Succession Act. Your spouse will get the first $250,000 and the remainder will be divided equally between your children. If the amount that each of the children receive is more than $250,000, then the spouse and the children will inherit in equal shares. If you have more than one spouse, each spouse will first get $250,000 and the remainder will be divided equally between your children. Interstate succession can get very tricky and involved, especially where there is no spouse or children. This is normally where most family disputes come in, but there can be disputes between the family members regarding the inheritance in any situation. Also, if you don't have a will, any inheritance that must go to a minor must be paid into the guardian's fund at the master's office. This is a state institution, and one always struggles to get hold of them, either telephonically or by email. Furthermore, there are a lot of requirements that must be complied with before one can get money from the guardian's fund. This involves packs of documents to be completed, which is not always easily understandable. Most people also do not understand the process, which makes it even harder for them. So in essence, having a will ensures that your estate devolve upon the people you want to benefit from your estate in the proportions you determine. You can even leave just one specific item to a specific person. This is called a legacy or a special bequest. A will also prevents that the inheritance of a minor heir have to be paid to the guardian's fund, as you can create a testamentary trust in your will. A will also, most of the time, prevent family disputes because your wishes are set out clearly in the will. Regarding a joint estate, remember that if you are married in community of property, you will have a joint estate which will include all your assets as well as all your spouse's assets. Your spouse will get half of the joint estate in terms of the marriage in community of property before any distribution to heirs. Only what is left, in other words, your half of the joint estate, will be distributed to your heirs, either in terms of the Interstate Succession Act or in terms of your will. There are many formal requirements for a valid will in terms of the Wills Act. The most important one is that you and two witnesses must sign in full each page of the will. At the end of the will, it must be dated and again signed in full by you and the two witnesses. The witnesses must be people who do not receive any benefit under or from your will. An appointment as executor is considered a benefit as the executor is entitled to receive executor's fees for the administration of your estate. It is advisable that the witnesses also not be people who could inherit from you interstate. So in other words, no family members. Any person who either signed the will or who wrote anything in the will may not inherit or receive any benefit from the estate. This is to eliminate undue influence, duress, or fraud on the person whose will it is. The date of the will is important, as the master's office will accept the latest will as your last valid will, and your estate will have to be administered in terms of your latest will. The date on the will helps with determining which will is your last and latest will. There are also formal requirements for the appointment of an executor. For instance, only a natural person can be appointed as executor, and the executor must permanently live in South Africa. You may put in your will anything you want, but it will not necessarily be legal or practically implementable. This is why it is so important to consult a professional who specializes in wills and estates to assist you with the drawing up of your will. It is very important to have your will done by professionals who know what they are doing. Having a will also avoids family disputes after death. In your will, you set out your wishes for the distribution of your estate. If this is done correctly, there can be no doubt as to who gets what. Again, it is important to have your will done professionally by people who know what they are doing in order to avoid any interpretational disputes in respect of the will. Your will must be clearly worded and not contain any contradictions. The more complicated your will is, the more difficult the administration of the estate will be. This may even lead to a delay in the finalization of your estate. So it is best to keep your bequests as simple as possible. This is not a complete discussion of all the requirements. Just the highlights have been mentioned.